So buyers with asthma spend a lot of time thinking about air filters and HVAC systems, and almost none of them think about what's coming up through the foundation and like what's baked into the soil or how the geology of a specific location affects indoor air quality in ways that a normal home inspection doesn't flag. I'm a geologist and I'm a real estate agent, and today I am going to go through a very major but hidden hazard in a home that can make asthma worse and how to actually screen for it before you buy. Okay, let's start with the one that I talk about the most, and with good reason. Radon is a radioactive gas that forms from uranium decay in the ground. In high concentrations, it's the second leading cause of lung cancer in the US, but even at sub-action level concentrations, radon has been studied as a respiratory irritant. And for someone with compromised airways, irritants matter a whole lot more. So the EPA action level is 4 picocuries per liter, and the WHO, World Health Organization, actually recommends 2.7. So if you're buying in a place like Colorado, where the geology already is like stacked against you and constantly emitting radon, the Pikes Peak Batholith is one of the most uranium-rich granite formation in the country. Where I live, hooray, you should get a test. You should get a radon test, always, no exceptions. Other than uranium, mold is probably the asthma trigger that most buyers think about, but most of them are probably looking in the wrong places. They're checking under sinks and around windows, and the more dangerous source is often what the geology is doing in the foundation. Certain soil types, expansive clays, high plasticity soils, they can hold and release moisture cyclically, and that movement creates microfractures in the slabs and foundation walls over time, and those cracks become moisture migration pathways. So moisture becomes mold, mold becomes an airway problem. And you don't always see this in a standard inspection, so you have to look at the soil type and on the USDA Web Soil Survey and ask about any history of foundation repair or efflorescence, especially on the basement walls. So you can't see this in a standard inspection, and you have to look at the soil type on the USDA Web Soil Survey and ask the previous owners about any history of foundation repair or efflorescence on the basement walls. And I'm gonna talk a little bit more about efflorescence because that sounds like something else if you don't know what it is. Efflorescence sounds like a crazy word. And what it actually is, what's actually happening is that water is migrating through your foundation wall, picking up dissolved mineral salts from the concrete itself as it moves, and then depositing it on the surface as it evaporates. So just like you find salt on rocks near the ocean, that's kind of what's happening. So the white powder is just salt crystals, essentially. It is completely harmless on its own. So it's not really the efflorescence itself that you should be worried about. It's what it's telling you. And it's telling you that there's an active moisture pathway in your foundation, and that will eventually become mold. On a weird side note, because efflorescence sounds like something that you could take a UV light and see if something glows in your basement, but that's not true. That's not what that word is. But it is something you can do, just not for efflorescence. And I'm going to talk about that since it's partially true, but it is mostly misunderstood. So some mold species like Aspergillus or Aspergillus, I don't know, I'm not a biologist, I am a geologist, so forgive me if I mispronounce these. Aspergillus and penicillium are the common ones that do produce organic compounds that fluoresce under a UV light. So you'll see a greenish or a yellowish glow in a dark room, but here's where it kind of falls apart as a detection method. Many mold species don't fluoresce at all, especially the important scary ones like black mold, which is Stachybotrys. Don't have to worry about it. It's black mold, and black mold is one of the ones that do not fluoresce. So a clean UV scan does not mean a clean basement, and a not clean UV doesn't mean a super dangerous basement. Because you can also get false positives from dust and paints and cleaning products that fluoresce the same way, or maybe you have some rocks in your basement. But what a UV light does for you is give you one screening layer. It's cheap, it's fast, it's worth doing, but a negative result means nothing without also checking the moisture levels with a meter, an actual meter. And any significant finds still needs a lab analysis to identify the species. So you need to call a professional either way, especially if you see the white powdery stuff, right? So the right sequence when you see efflorescence is confirm the moisture pathway, look for mold with a UV light at a first pass, but follow up with a moisture meter. And if you find anything suspicious, you get a professional assessment, not a bleach solution and a prayer, okay? Another subject that I really like to talk about is VOCs, volatile organic compounds. These things you might have heard of from like off-gassing from fresh paint and like off-gassing from new carpet, but these things also come from the ground. And there are certain geological formations that naturally off-gas organic compounds that migrate upwards through the soil and into living spaces through the foundation and cracks. There's also petroleum-bearing sediments, there's coal-bearing geology, decomposing organic rich soils, and those can produce benzene, toluene, and there's other hydrocarbons at certain concentrations that can be really harmful over time and acutely irritating for anybody with asthma. But more commonly, if the property sits on or near land with any history of dry cleaning, auto repair, fuel storage, even decades ago, residual chlorinated solvents can still be migrating into the home. We call this vapor intrusion, and the EPA has an entire guidance document on it. Like it's not something that you get on a home inspection, but it is something that you can have done. And the only way to know is a phase 1 or a phase 2 environmental assessment or a very targeted soil gas screening. Another one is combustion sources. So gas stove, gas furnaces, wood fireplaces, those are all combustion sources and all potential asthma triggers, which people who have asthma probably know that. But there's a specific failure method that most buyers might not know to ask about, and that's called backdrafting. So backdrafting is when a home is tightly sealed, for example, after it's been upgraded for energy efficiency, right? So it makes it to where combustion appliances can't draw enough makeup air, and the exhaust gases that should go up the flue all get pulled back into the living space instead. And that means carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, particulates, and everything else end up landing directly in someone's airways. So something to ask to make sure if this might affect you or not is to find out whether any air sealing work has been done on the home, and ask when the HVAC was last inspected or if combustion appliances were tested for proper venting after any weatherization upgrades. Not very common things, but still something you should ask about. If you're buying anywhere in the Western US, the unfortunate truth is that wildfire smoke is now a routine annual air quality event, and there is basically no exception to this. Maybe you don't find that surprising, but what I bet you will find surprising is that the geology in the Western US has a lot to do with that. And the same terrain features that, of course, make the Western US absolutely beautiful, the canyons, the ridgelines, and the valley floors, also channel and trap smoke, because the cold air that likes to pool in the valleys also concentrates smoke particulates. So communities at the base of canyon outlets tend to get hit harder than those like on ridges. This is more of a terrain analysis problem, and it is solvable, but only if you're thinking about it before you go and look at houses. So here's what to actually do if asthma is a factor in your home buying decision, especially if you're extra sensitive and want to make sure you don't leave any stone unturned. So 1, test for radon every time, especially in the Mountain West and the Upper Midwest, no exceptions. 2, pull the USDA web soil survey for the property. Look for high shrink swell clay ratings, which indicate moisture cycling and foundation movement risk. That's linked below. 3, look up the site history. The EPA has tools that will show you industrial sites, Superfund proximity, and known contamination in the area. It's free, it's public, takes 5 minutes, and it's linked in the description. 4, ask specifically about any history of foundation repair, water intrusion, or mold remediation. Those are, I feel like, obvious questions, and they're disclosure level questions, but look for signs during your walkthrough just in case the seller forgets to disclose it. 5, if the property is near any former industrial land use, ask about a phase 1 environmental site assessment. If one hasn't been done, you can request it as a buyer condition, and things are looking more like a buyer's market right now, so make sure you take advantage of that. And 6, look at the terrain on Google Maps, just quickly. It's valley floors versus ridge lines and canyon outlets versus like an open slope. This all affects smoke exposure, cold air pooling, and the outdoor air quality every single year. So a home's air quality isn't just about what's inside of it, it's about what's under it and around it and what the landscape does to the air above it. So standard inspections don't really look at any of that. Green certifications don't look at most of that. So if you're buying somewhere and want honest eyes on the local hazards, I have a link in my bio and I've linked it in the description below. So stay informed and stay grounded. See you in the next one.